And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 69. We are in our Mexican residency, currently still down in Mexico, and looking at some just absolutely gorgeous Ford Aerostars. Last episode we looked at probably the jankiest one I could find, just to be a little emblematic of some of the jank that we might be encountering while we were down here. Now, I'm not sure if I think that's mostly a product of these just being a little bit older. And I think, a lot of these just get used a lot. And any car that gets used tends to turn janky after a while. But janky, it's not a pejorative. A lot of people use it as a pejorative. And maybe that is its common usage, but I don't see it as a pejorative whatsoever. I see it as an accolade, something that's janky. What I always like to say is it's sort of a binary threshold. Janky is sort of the bottom of where you can get before it's broken, but insofar as not being broken, it's sort of a pass-fail, a binary thing. Like if something is janky but it is not broken, then it's in exponentially better state than being broken. And I think in life, often we want things to be perfect, and we're upset when they're not perfect instead of being happy that they're not, completely broken. So anything that is janky, I feel like, because it's in this state of, dilapidation or whatever, it's easy to look at it as wanting more, glass half empty instead of glass half full, where, it's still going, and a lot of times things that are janky tell quite the story, and we as humans love storytelling. It's sort of what bounds us all together. It's how we conduct our lives, by telling stories. So let me tell you a story about a Ford Aerostar today. Without further ado, here we have a 1990 Ford Aerostar, listed for 40,000 Mexican pesos, I believe, and I have already done the calculation for you. That is $2,086.20 as of the date of this recording. In Cuauhtemoc, terrible, butchering the language, and I apologize for that, and CDMX, which of course is Ciudad Mexico City. So right in the heart of the city here, and as we can tell in this lovely urban environment we have behind us with some very colorful buildings. I love the, the colorful buildings you see in basically any other place than, America and Eastern or Western Europe, I'm sorry. Especially climates that tend to be warmer. You just see a lot more tropical colors. I spent some time in Vietnam, and all the buildings were lovely teals and oranges and yellows and all these things, and you see a lovely orange building behind this beautiful white Ford Aerostar. And that's what we're going to talk about today a lot, is sort of the color spec on this one. Obviously I have my white shirt on to match the vehicle, and when we talk about janky and it being like a, in my case, not a pejorative, like this van is by all accounts janky, but shabby chic is a common thing that's thrown around these days. There's a lot of ways to dance around janky without saying that word, and people put positive spins on it. I just cut straight to the chase and say it's janky, but there's a beauty in janky. I often say also I define janky as like sort of bare functionality and the aesthetic that's born out of that. So when something is made to be where purposefulness and usability and functionality are the main and often sole objective of something, the aesthetic that comes out of that is very, very interesting to me. Now this is, you could say this is a little bit gussied up. You could say this color scheme is not necessarily just born out of functionality, but you have some scrapes and some dings and some nicks and some dents and all these like sort of imperfections, but the way it adds up to me looks just perfect. I love patina. Often with my 1986 Ford Aerostar, I'll say, like, it took the sun 35 years to paint this Aerostar, so what a lovely job it has done. You couldn't recreate this. You often see these distressed jeans or things like that, and usually they always come off as sort of counterfeits because there's no real substitute for when something has been just over time patinaed or degraded. And I don't mean that again in a negative way, but just sort of the earth and the elements have taken hold of it and shaped it in their own little unique creative way. And that is a perfect we have here a perfect example of that. So first, just drink it in. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful all-white Aerostar. I often talk about how I love when bumpers on the Aerostar are painted to match the body of the vehicle, and white is a great example to show off that feature. We're so used to seeing Aerostars either with these two-tone configurations, so the bumpers will be painted, but they're painted sort of with the color that runs along the entire bottom of the vehicle. And then we'll see an Aerostar that's one solid color, a dark green or a red, but oftentimes the bumpers are sort of like an unpainted or like a gray, a standard gray color. So it's not often that we see sort of like a true monochromatic Aerostar where everything on the vehicle is painted in one singular color. And as Jay Leno likes to say, white is the color by which you measure like whether a designer is good or not. I've heard a lot of people call the Aerostar ugly. I was having a conversation with the great Chris Mert, who has sent in Aerostars, and we talk about Aerostars, and I guess there's another YouTuber that's recently purchased an Aerostar, and he keeps calling it ugly. I got to do a reaction video to this Jalopnik video where they say how ugly it is and how, they kind of rag on it. And, I like all sorts of automotive journalism. But for me, and with every car is a great car, my other review series, I really tried, I'm almost an apologist. I really try to find the good in every single car. And that kind of ties in with the Janky ethos. And it's like, automobiles are these incredible technological advancements that give us mobility and independence. And I will drive just about anything, and I'll be happy to do so. So I try to take that kind of lowest common denominator, as my baseline. And, people may have qualms with that, but that's okay. The Aerostar, on the other hand, to me is like, a pinnacle. And I don't find its design ugly at all. I really, it boggles my mind how people have, such animosity towards this vehicle. But, to each their own. I find it to be a very, very beautiful vehicle, and I love it in this white. And not only are the bumpers white to match the body of the vehicle, but we'll also see this beautiful, beautiful grille also painted in white, and I think it just looks really, really stunning. And I like that they kind of didn't paint, because sometimes you'll see these headlight bezels also painted a body color. I think leaving them silver or chrome is very, very nice, because it just gives it that little touch of, contrast. And I think the white with the silver border around it just gives it that nice sense of depth, and it highlights the fact that the grille is painted. Now, sport models, which I have a 93 Sport, those did come with a factory painted sort of grille insert, and that was very, very noteworthy, because it was like one of the biggest sort of aesthetic differentiations in that model, and I think they just look so good painted. I think they look great in their gray too. But I think it's when they're painted, they're kind of special. The other thing we notice is that the wing mirrors have been painted white as well, which is a nice little touch. They easily could have left those black, but it looks like they did a pretty good job here too, even trimming around this little plastic holder that, where it connects to your glass there. It looks like a very, very well done job. Now, obviously you have, your little rust spots here, your little patina, you have a little paint chipping on the bumper, but I don't mind all that. It's like, it's like a car that you can bring to a car show where you don't really care if anyone's going to bump into it. It's not like a show queen, as they say. And those cars, to me, that would just give me like an incredible sense of anxiety. And you go find me a Ferrari 250 GTO that just sold for $37 million, and I can look at it for about, 30 or 40 seconds, and I'll find some flaw in it. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a mark against that car, but it's just sort of an extreme example of how everything is imperfect. A lot of those old, Miura or these old like handmade supercars, these old Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff, a lot of them, they sit kind of asymmetrical. I mean, to me, that's a good thing. To me, it shows that it was like sort of built by hand and it's a human creation, not some, robotic creation that hasn't had the warmth of the human touch applied to it. So I think these are all good things in sort of the general design process. And, again, I might be preaching to the choir here, but that's why I really like sort of the janky elements. You have a little bit of a gap here that's going on, and these bumpers do tend to flex a little bit. Again, doesn't bother me whatsoever. I just really, really like the look of this, especially this grille. Now, being in 1990, that's in the great 3-year period, 89 to 91, where they had this new, more modern 3-spoke grille, but with the Ford logo located in the center as opposed to at the top. And I think that looks absolutely fantastic in the white paint scheme, and that blue oval just sort of stands there proudly and looks very, very nice. Now, looks like this one amber light here on the side, I don't know if you can see that with my head in the way, is orange, whereas this one is a little bit of faded. So and it looks like maybe the amber's sort of worn out. So it looks like, just another little bit of asymmetry going on there. This is also before the headlights were mounted flush, so you have these sort of inset glass bulbs. Just, no particular one better than the other, but, it does demarcate the Aerostar as being from a certain earlier generation, as a lot of them seem to be from down here. Factory roof rack, very, very nice, and I just love this giant radio antenna that sticks out here. It does not retract, it just stays there all the time and adds sort of a cool little, kind of retro thing to the Aerostar. Okay, looking around the back, the other thing that I like, and I really appreciate this because you can tell it wasn't just like get out the rattle can and spray the whole thing down, get out the mop. Like, they took the time to, keep this little black strip that was in a lot of early Aerostar rear bumpers. They kept that there. And again, just adds a nice little contrast. Black and white is such a, it's like the Jordan 11 Concorde. It's this iconic color combination. Janelle Monáe, it's right behind me. And that just, white and black just makes sense on an Aerostar because all of your, as I've talked about many times, like all your, your rubber and your roof rack and your wipers and your mirrors, the mirrors are painted white here, but still the sort of backside of the mirror is all black. Of course, on most cars, if not all cars, your tires are going to be black. So it lends itself very well to a black and white color scheme because you have that built-in sort of accent color and that built-in contrast. Very interesting here. Looks like the tailpipe is indeed coming out the back, whereas I've noted in other videos, that wood panel Aerostar video that I did, the Aerostar from factory had like a semi-side exhaust where it skirted out the side, but here it comes straight out the back. So it does look kind of cool coming out there. It gives it like a little sporty vibe. Another interesting thing is factory alloy wheels. So this does look like it's an XLT model, so maybe you had a little bit of an upgrade package, and that came with these factory alloy wheels. Now I will say these are also sort of a two-tone. These are very, very similar to like a Corvette C4 wheel, an early Corvette C4 wheel. I think I call them the slicer wheels. They call them like the saw blade wheels, although the saw blade might be the later ones and the slicers, I don't know. But suffice it to say that these look very similar to Corvette C4 wheels, in my opinion. I think Corvette C4 wheels would probably look absolutely amazing on a Aerostar, and I have seen those early Corvette C4 wheels on a lot of other cars. I've seen them on Volkswagens, I think Volvos. Like, it's kind of a low-key popular choice for an aftermarket wheel, and I think they just look absolutely fabulous. I love when alloy wheels were bigger and had less gaps. Now everything is like as small as you can possibly make the metal, and all these very intricate designs, which are very beautiful, and they show off the giant big brake calipers that are painted or have logos, Brembo or Corvette, whatever it may be. But I like a lot of these bigger wheels, the Jaguar XJ220 or a lot of early Lamborghinis, they had these big fat wheels, and they just looked, they were alloys. It wasn't like a steel wheel. It was still like, upscale or luxury, but they just had a lot of like heft to them, and they seemed very sturdy. And yet with still a lot of style too. So you have all these little, aerodynamic sort of angularities coming out of the wheel. And it has this sort of from factory little black insert. So this is actually a very early, another place where Aerostar was ahead of its time, a very early incarnation of a two-tone wheel. Now on like every Toyota you buy, and many, many other models, we had the black wheel craze and everyone wanted the black wheels, and now there's like a combination black and silver wheel that's very, very popular now, where you'll have like a silver wheel with black accents or vice versa. This was a very, very early version of that, so it is just like a silver alloy wheel, but of course it has these little black inserts, so very cool. Now I will say, the only thing I'll say, if these were painted or powder coated white, then I think that would really complete the look on this. I mean, if these were white, these would, and they almost do look like it in the light, but that would really make this vehicle pop. So if I were to purchase this vehicle, that's probably maybe the only modification I would make to it. There's another beautiful shot of the front, and we get to see this wing mirror again. You know, just a timeless, iconic design. Your big plastic cowl with all these slots in it. I love that piece. It looks so cool. Then you have a little dangle on your windshield wiper. Looks like that probably needs to be replaced at some point. But let's backtrack here and read the description though, and you can hear me butcher some more Spanish. Driven 150,345 kilometers. Now I did not do that calculation. That's what, 100,000 miles, something like that. Automatic transmission, exterior color white, interior color blue. We'll get to that in a second. Fuel type gasoline. Engine size -1 liter, which is very, very strange. I don't understand at all, but it makes me happy to be confused by that. And 2 owners. Okay, seller's description. Pongo a la venta camioneta Aerostar modelo 90. I don't know what pongo means, but it's a very nice word. La venta. Camioneta, I'm guessing that has to do with something like windows or, you know, the body style of the vehicle. Se encuentra en excelentes condiciones. I will always understand excelentes condiciones. 2 cognates there. El precio es a tratar, gustar, checarla y a cualquier prueba traiga a su mecánico. I'm guessing that's something about the mechanical condition of the vehicle. I will hit the translation button to see how bad I am. But once you hit this is, you know, okay, so this is also, as much as we talk about Aerostars, we're also talking about Marketplace and Craigslist and the classifieds. It's also sort of a, you know, a series about that as well. That's sort of the series within a series. And I will say, I wish Google or Facebook or whoever's doing this, once you see the translation, I wish you could unsee it. You know, once you've clicked on it, it's kind of hard to make it disappear. I haven't found a way to make it disappear other than like X out the window and reload the post. You know, I digress. Putting up, so that's Pongo perhaps, putting up 90 Aerostar pickup truck for sale. La venta camioneta. It's not a pickup truck. There are Aerostar pickup trucks out there. I would love to feature one on Year of the Aerostar one day, but one has not popped up onto the classifieds, at least as long as I've been doing this series. I have seen them. I saw a 2-tone black with a yellow middle strip Aerostar pickup. I have a picture of it somewhere. If I can dig it out, I'll try to put it in here. And it was for sale in Florida for like $500. And I don't know where I was in my life. I probably didn't have time or money to go down to Florida and buy a potentially, you know, not running Aerostar pickup. But I always wish I could get that one back if that ever comes up again. I mean, if I ever see an Aerostar pickup, I might try to make one day. But it's hard to cut one up that, you know, is in good condition. There's enough of them out there, I guess you could do it. But if I ever see an Aerostar pickup, I just, you know, I gotta have it. That's one I definitely want in the collection. Anyways, this is not a pickup truck, but I see why they're saying that. It is in excellent condition. The price is negotiable. Like, check it out. For any test, bring your mechanic. Oh, there you go. So you could even, they're offering, you know, it seems like a very reputable seller here. Bring your mechanic, have them check it out, you know, pre-purchase inspection, all that. So, boy, seems like would be a nice person to deal with in terms of a transaction. I like that. And you know, for $2,000, it doesn't have super high miles on it. It says it's in really good condition. I love the, you know, custom paintwork that they've done to it. So it seems like a really good deal too. This is the shot. You know, I always talk about how I like to see full frame, head-on, and side shots of the Aerostar because it really shows off the profile and the face, respectively. And here we just have a beautiful, beautiful shot of the Aerostar's face. I don't know how you call this ugly. I mean, I don't even know how you call it dated. I mean, I think this aesthetic is just, you know, timeless is the only word for it. Like it just looks so good. It's simple. The funny thing about the Aerostar, and this just shot is, I can tell, taken from like, you know, a standing height. If you get down and really look at an Aerostar eye to eye, the thing that's so amazing about it is the lights are so low in proportion to the total height of the vehicle. Like, you know, if your hood line is approximately halfway of the height of the vehicle, and then you have your window and your roof line, look at how low the lights are in the grand scheme of things. So that gives it like a really interesting presence, and it does seem to have that you know, sports car look, just like sort of a sports car that's been made tall. But I just love the design of it. I love how everything is boxy, and you just have these big horizontal line that wraps around with your lights, your blinkers, your grille. Everything is perfectly, you know, in parallel with itself. And then you have the bumper, and then you have the hood, and then you have the cowl, and then you have the windshield. But as you have all those things north of the headlights, everything just takes this gradual slope backwards and inward as the, you know, perspective you know, forms in your eyesight. So this has got to be the cover photo for me. I'll probably double it up, as I do on a lot of these that aren't wide enough to put in a 16:9 frame. And then, you know, So Nice will show it twice. So just a gorgeous, gorgeous shot of that Aerostar there. And white and blue, you know, with that little blue Ford logo there, the blue interior. White on blue, or white and blue, is like sort of a really, really iconic Ford livery in general. You know, like the white Ford GT with the blue stripes is just such an iconic look. You know, Mustangs with white with the blue stripes. I would say like a Dodge Viper, but I guess the blue with white stripes, that's not a Ford product anyways. But white and blue certainly a very iconic sort of Ford livery. And you know, I would love to park one of these next to a white Ford GT, and just, you know, sort of the yin and the yang of these extremes in the Ford line. You know, one for, you know, your Sunday driving, and then one for your daily activities. You know, a little bit more practical slightly, but still fun to drive, don't get me wrong. Okay, here we have another side shot. You know, nothing too out of the ordinary here. We get a little tease at this interior, which we'll start to look at soon. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, the jank on the other side of this taillight. I didn't bring that up, but it is cracked right there. No biggie. You can buy these lights fairly cheap on eBay, and they are plentiful. Another good reason why people should consider Aerostars as you know, classic vehicles, because it's easy to get parts. And you know, it's a thing that it's not too difficult or expensive to keep running. So that's always good. Okay, this being the XLT model, it doesn't look like we have the, you know, it's fairly liberal use of duct tape in this vehicle, which I always support. It looks like you have like a, you know, top-mounted HVAC system, which I didn't even know. I thought it was sort of mounted lower, but it looks like you have, you know, your rear air conditioning here. And back in the day when dome lights were big, I love these two big dome lights. And you do have your sort of center-mounted trip computer with all sorts of buttons and gadgets and information displayed here. Again, just, you know, the Aerostar kind of being ahead of its time with the data that was available. This looks like a little wider than stock rear view mirror. I could be wrong about that, but just, you know, looks a little wider than I'm used to. Maybe it's aftermarket, or maybe they just had a wider one, or maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. But again, I like this little divider here that sort of separates your front headliner from your rear. And we can start to get a glimpse now of the beautiful blue interior. I love this shot as well. A little dark, I'm sure you could lighten it up, but, you know, a good amount of things to talk about here. First of all, I love a dashboard carpet. This looks like it might be sort of custom. Looks like it was sort of just cut out. Now they did make, I think you can buy or could buy, probably aftermarket still, but one that was like, you know, perfectly formatted to the Aerostar dashboard. I just love a carpet dashboard cover. There's something, you know, it reminds me of like a carpeted toilet seat. It's not, I mean, that's a little less practical, quite frankly, but just a funny feature of vehicles, but very practical because it does keep the sun off of your dashboard and keep it from cracking. Just this Aerostar logo on your dash pad here, it was such a nice touch by Ford. It reminds me very much of this very similar logo, the Bertoni logo that's in the X19, Fiat X19 in the same spot there. Just iconic sort of retro-futuristic font. Of course, this is the pre-facelift interior. We have your giant automatic transmission shifter, which I am claiming now is the tallest, the single longest factory floor-mounted automatic transmission lever. I don't know if that's true. I'd like to be proven wrong, but until then, we're going to go with it. You know, aftermarket CD player. Looks like you have some aftermarket brake and gas pedal covers, or you know, maybe the pedals themselves have been replaced, but you have these, like, you know, sort of billet or metal, super strong, so you can, you know, mash on the gas or mash on the brake pedal. I like that touch. And then of course this pretty gorgeous sort of futuristic, almost looks like, I've seen wheels like this, but I've never seen one with this, quite this amount of detail in it. I love these two spokes that go down to this metal rim that attaches to the bottom, and then on your top you have these sort of ergonomic sort of thumb positions, and then you have very similar, like a BMW Z8 factory steering wheel with this more flat metal as opposed to the rounded, with a nice little center cluster. I'm not sure if your horn works on account of this vehicle, but then the pièce de résistance is of course this great club. And I always love a club in a car. You see these still a lot, like in New York City. Still very common, and it seems like kind of a tried and true anti-theft device, although I imagine removing the steering wheel would sort of allow you to bypass that, but I digress. Some lovely rosary beads looks like here. And that just sort of completes the look. So a great shot of the interior here with the road facing outward. And you can see all these little, you know, mini buggies. And the Aerostar actually surprisingly fits in very well. Now it's a little less round, it's a little bit more angular and wedgy, but the general shape of this little hatchback, again, I've talked about in previous videos, the standard length Aerostar is really not that long, and it's very, you know, mobile and agile, for especially considering how much stuff you can fit in there. And speaking of which, here we have a great shot of the rear. I'm going to view this briefly. Obviously, it's your lift gate, it's not your barn doors, it's a passenger vehicle. But the thing I wanted to talk about, again, and this is nice, like, it's not just the blue interior, but you have, being, I guess, the XLT version, you have your great sort of leatherette piping that goes along with your, you know, vinyl interior. So a little bit of that two-tone, the white sort of grayish leather, really gives an air of luxury to me. And this has the power windows, power locks. So for 1990, you really had all the bells and whistles on this thing, which I appreciate. And again, the blue interior and the white body looks absolutely astounding. Now here's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Looks like you also have your center console. I think that was an option. Perhaps these seats were sort of reupholstered. It's very possible. However, I want to know if the Aerostar was sold in Mexico natively, because I feel like I've seen quite a few examples that have like different seats than I'm used to seeing. You know, normally they're just that two-tone fabric where the sort of pattern inlay goes here, and then you have a different section here. But I've never seen one where the two different materials, usually they're both cloth. I've seen vinyl seats in an Aerostar, especially in the contractor Aerostars, but I've never seen a combination vinyl and cloth seat. And I have to say, it looks fantastic. It goes with the interior, it goes with the blue, and it's got that great, you know, a lot of high-end sports cars now, it'll be like leather and Alcantara or leather and microfiber or whatever it is. So this, you know, it almost looks like corduroy here on like the armrest. It's just like a real smorgasbord of different materials, and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. Again, we should also point out this great lumbar support, you know, power air seat inflator. My 86 has this. It's just hilarious. The guy that I bought it from, the only thing he wanted to talk about was how the lumbar support was good for his back. He went on and on about it. One day I'll unearth that voicemail that I still have saved somewhere. Just another great feature, and again, your red and blue sort of color-coded switches, which I just think is like really sort of almost exclusive to the Aerostar, and just another one of those little things that they did that was sort of never repeated, and I'm not sure quite why. Now, when you're talking about jankiness, look at this jank. I mean, this is just a pile of jank. What is all this stuff? Presumably everything works, but your dashboard has sort of been pulled apart on the left side, and all this would be your light switch and your wiper switch and stuff like that, and it's all you know, looks like it's been taped up nice and good. Maybe there was sort of like a rewiring job here and they just sort of left it, but that's the type of thing I'm talking about, you know. yeah, it's a bunch of wires hanging out everywhere, but if it gets you down the road, who really cares? You know, it's like, like, you know, we have an obsession with sort of facade and with presentation and with, you know, being performative, especially now more than ever in society. And I think this, you know, there's something very honest about jankiness. You know, it's like, come as you are. And this is how this Aerostar sits right now, and you know, I don't really have any problems with it. You know, maybe I'd want to mount them in there just a little bit as time goes on to keep the wires from dangling and stressing them out. But I just love it. I love that, you know, this is a very, very honestly presented Aerostar. Looks like your struts are still working. That's a plus, especially on a 1990. The ones on my 86 are pretty much gone. I'm going to have to replace those. But that's nice to know that the struts are still working there. And of course, you even have a speaker all the way in the back for your rearmost passengers. Another great shot of the interior. And again, so I love the Aerostar continued this. This is what makes me think that it's factory. And maybe they just, it's weird, you know, it's so weird what automakers do in different, when they sell vehicles in different countries. I don't know why these seats wouldn't have been offered in the US, but would have been offered in a country like Mexico. Makes no sense to me. But I like that it's here, and it just, even the seat shape looks slightly different. You know, I remember them being more sort of square and not angled like this. But this is what makes, you know, buying an Aerostar like in Mexico really, really enticing to me, because you just get something different. You get something that you don't see every day. And little details like this, I just love. So really nice, you know, you have both bench seats, which is great. You can fit 7 adults comfortably in a car for this size. I mean, it's just remarkable. Again, you know, I heard somewhere, I read some piece of literature, how the Aerostar kind of was on the forefront of the crossover. You know, it was viewed as more of a small van, but that's kind of what a crossover is. It's sort of just like a small SUV. You know, it's a crossover between a car and an SUV. And the Aerostar, if you just look at it on paper for the dimensions of the vehicle, the interior cargo space, the availability to fit a lot of people in it, more than like a sedan, and the option of all-wheel drive, like it really is a precursor to the crossover. And I wish they would make more things like this now. And I think, you know, I'm not picking on Mazda. I love Mazda, but you know, like the new CX-3 and stuff like that, they're very good-looking cars, and they're very practical. And I love what Mazda's doing with Sky Active and all that. However, the rear, you know, the rear line on those cars swoops off so much, and it's almost like sort of taking away from your rear occupant's headroom for the sake of styling. And while I think that's great and all, and I love the way those Mazdas look, you know, there's something to be said for ergonomics, there's something to be said for practicality, and there's something to be said for, you know, usability. For functionality. And so I think in that regard, the Aerostar passes with flying colors. And again, this is subjective, but I don't think the Aerostar lacks in styling or character one iota for, you know, all the functionality that it provides. You have a great step up here, you know, a little step there to step up into your cargo area, and you even have a nice little light that turns on and off with the door. So again, just offering a little bit of light so people can see where the step is when it's dark. They really did think of everything. And back to the beginning. Whew. So yeah, for many reasons, this one really stood out to me. You know, I was perusing and it didn't take me long to find one that I want to talk about. Just a gem. You know, I really like the paint scheme, and I like the blue interior, and I like this sort of differentiation in the patterns on the seats. Here we get a little bit of a view of that, yeah, stock Aerostar seat with a great, you know, built-in headrest. Again, you know, less pieces, less moving parts, less things to break, less things to lose. Just you know, versatility and functionality all the way, and you know, good looks to back it up. So there you have it. Really enjoying this little Mexican residency we're doing here. We'll see how long it lasts. I mean, there's no way I'm going to be able to get to all of them, but well, we'll get while the getting's good here on Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar. So, thank you so much for watching. I have to respond to some comments, and you know, while I'm here pandering to you all, please like, comment, subscribe if you have not already, We're marching real close to 500 subscribers, which is awesome. I can't wait. I'm going to do something special for that. And that's halfway to the magic monetization on YouTube, so that's pretty cool. So thank you all who have been a part of this ride here on Year of the Aerostar and Janky AF. And until next time, Janky do Thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.